On the evening of February 28, 1986, Olof Palme, the Prime Minister of Sweden, and his wife Lisbeth were enjoying a movie at the Circus Cinema in the heart of Stockholm. Outside, the scene was calm, the air cold, and the street bustling with pedestrians at the end of an ordinary day. However, this day, which seemed like any other, carried events that would forever change Sweden's history. Palme, the man with bold political stances who had led the country through stormy times, had no idea that this night, which seemed so normal, would be his last. Eyes were watching them, yet no one in the street knew that the end was near. At 11:21 p.m., after the film ended, Olof Palme and his wife left the cinema and walked across the street towards their home. The scene was simple, just a couple walking together down a quiet Stockholm street. But while the city was in a state of stillness, there was something dark lurking in the shadows. Their walk home was short, and everything seemed normal, yet in that moment, the mystery was closing in on them fast. Their steps were familiar, yet they led them to an unexpected fate. They did not realize that their end was just a few steps away, on a street that seemed to hold nothing but peace. As Olof Palme and his wife walked down the dark street, the sound of sharp gunshots suddenly rang out, and the bullets struck the Swedish Prime Minister. Palme fell to the ground in front of his wife in a moment of horror and complete silence, while blood flowed from his head. Lisbeth was in total shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. In moments, the whole world was changing. As passers-by rushed to help, Olof Palme was already dead. There was no time to think or reflect, only shock, mystery, and an immense blow that would shake Sweden to its core. At the moment of the incident, Lisbeth Palme screamed for help, while the people around her stood in stunned silence. 2 individuals rushed to call an ambulance, but time was crucial. People nearby attempted first aid, but Palme's injuries were fatal. There was no hope of saving him. In those moments, silence overtook the scene, and only one question remained: who did this? Suspicion grew, and questions began to be raised about the motives behind the violent attack on a man who held the office of Sweden's Prime Minister. Moments after the attack, the police continued their efforts to find any clues. Despite the attempts to save him, it was too late. Emergency teams arrived on the scene within minutes, but they found that Palme had already passed away. The shock was profound, not only in Sweden, but around the world. A prime minister killed in the dead of night in the heart of the capital by an unknown assailant. Investigations began immediately, but no clear evidence emerged. Every lead seemed to lead to a dead end. Many questions were raised about who might be behind this brutal attack, and whether there was a political motive for the crime. The streets surrounding the crime scene were quickly closed off, and the police established a security cordon around the area. Official investigations began immediately, but it was not easy to pinpoint any clue that would lead to the killer. Eyewitnesses were questioned, but they could only provide vague information about strange individuals seen near the crime scene. The police lacked physical evidence, which made the investigation feel like it was going in circles. No one had any idea who the perpetrator was or what their motives could have been. Investigators began analyzing every tiny detail that could lead to a clue, but no new information surfaced. The police considered several possibilities. Was the killer someone affiliated with an opposition political movement, or was the crime the result of personal issues? Things grew more mysterious as the days passed. No one expected the investigation to remain open for such a long period, with no strong lead pointing to the culprit. Media outlets began promoting various theories, but nothing substantial emerged. Soon, the public began to ask questions. Was the motive behind the assassination political? Olof Palme was known for his principled stances, particularly on issues of peace and international relations, which might have made him enemies both at home and abroad. Was this a carefully planned assassination by foreign forces opposed to Sweden's policies? These questions lingered in the air, while the police were caught in a whirlwind of possibilities. Although every lead seemed to go nowhere, the attack deepened the fear and suspicion among the people. In the days that followed, the police began questioning many individuals who had been near the crime scene. Investigators visited every corner of Stockholm, searching for any clue that could lead them to the killer. But every person they questioned gave vague or unhelpful statements. Even the descriptions collected of the suspects were insufficient to identify the perpetrator. While the police continued their investigations, concern grew over the fact that a crime had been committed that no one could yet solve. Through the media, many speculations about the killer's identity spread. Some believed the assassination might have been orchestrated by political opponents within Sweden, while others pointed to foreign motives. Among these theories, there were heated debates about whether the case was related to internal conflicts or international disputes. Despite many assumptions, the mystery remained unsolved, with no evidence to confirm or deny any of these speculations. The case was a source of great confusion for everyone. Months passed, and the investigation began to feel like it was going in circles. The police followed every possible lead, but nothing brought them closer to the killer. Many of the hypotheses were tested and found to be wrong. Every new hope of uncovering the identity of the murderer quickly faded, leaving the investigators in a state of frustration. There were no signs that the case would be resolved anytime soon, which created even more anxiety and tension in the country about who had committed this horrific crime. As the investigation continued, the media began to publish conflicting reports, naming suspects who had no connection to the case. These false reports caused a stir and created confusion in the investigation. Journalists sought out sensational stories to attract attention, but this did not help advance the investigation. Some reports were based on dubious information, putting even more pressure on the police. In the end, there was no evidence to support these claims. In 2006, more than 20 years after the assassination of Olof Palme, the Swedish police started to intensively review the investigation. All old files were examined, and some new details began to surface that had been overlooked before. This phase saw the emergence of some evidence that might have helped in identifying the killer, but it was still inconclusive. It was unclear whether these new pieces of evidence would contribute to solving the case. In 2020, a new theory about the potential killer emerged. Some began to suggest that the killer might have been linked to previous political operations or part of a larger network. This theory included many new details that could help clarify the motivations behind the assassination. However, once again, there was no solid proof to confirm this theory. Despite the passing of years, the case of Olof Palme's assassination remains open. The investigation has not reached a decisive point, and the suspect remains unknown. The police continue their efforts, but the questions raised from the very first moment have yet to be answered. The mystery remains the hallmark of this case, and Sweden is still waiting for justice for this assassination that took place in 1986, with the story of the perpetrator still incomplete. Source of the true story: The Assassination of Olof Palme, Sweden, 1986. Investigations remain open until 2026.